Hello and good afternoon, good morning, and good night, depending on where you find this and when you find this. We are live once again with another episode of the Future of Education Roundtable. This makes volume 10, which means we've been doing 10 of these sequentially, one a week, every week for, you guessed it, 10 weeks. Today, we are keeping it to just the faculty, just the team. I have with me Jackie Gold, Debbie Elder, and John Bellina. And we're going to discuss today, what do we want for our children as parents in the age of COVID, in the age of coronavirus, in the on the threshold of a brave new future? What do we actually want for our children? Debbie, if you would kick us off as I share this broadcast out, I would be most grateful.
Absolutely. So it's been an interesting time as the owner of an elementary school. Currently, we have had so many inquiries because we are opening up our physical space in September. I have a health worker coming tomorrow to investigate exactly how we can keep our students safe. And I know when I listen to my parents, their needs and desires are shifting, and they're really questioning whether or not they feel safe having their children on a campus. They are questioning whether or not they feel confident that they can homeschool their own children. Questions that I don't think they've ever asked themselves before. So it's a really crazy time for sure. And I think it's good. I think it's really allowing them to get clear on what it is they truly want. And I think that up until this point, a lot of us tend to just go through the motions. And when we get disrupted, we stop and evaluate. And I think evaluation is good. And I know when I made the decision to homeschool my daughters many, many years ago, that's what I did. I had a big disruption, and I had to evaluate and get very clear on what I wanted for my daughters and what I expected them to be able to do when they left me at the age of 18-ish. And I think that I would really encourage our listeners to take this opportunity and evaluate what it is they do want for their children. And I hope over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we can help you with that decision because we know. Yeah. We've got some really good ideas for you.
So, John, what should we want for our kids through the lens of what the future looks like beyond hysteria about a virus, right? Sure. I mean, including that's certainly the thing that's giving us the moment to pause and to reflect and to analyze and assess. But beyond that, what kind of things should we want for our kids so that they're ready, they're prepared?
Well, I think number one, looking, in a looking glass, looking forward. I think number one, basic. I just want my child to have a job. I want them to have a career. Mm-hmm. I want them to be able to make a living on their own, mm-hmm. and not have to worry about where they are from a skill set compared to their peers. Yeah. Everybody competing in that work environment.
Do we have are we as a group or you individually prepared to prognosticate on what's going to be needed for those jobs 10, 15 years down the road?
Well, I think that I'm in a decent position right now, starting in September with having a whole new approach to how we look at the future of education, right? So what tools we're going to just put out there on the table for students to grab and find that passion, find that, that drive in a subject matter or 10, and go and build those skills. I think it's a race. I honestly think it's a race to prepare.
What are the skills though? That's what I'm asking. Are you willing to sort of throw your hat in the ring on what you think is going to be needed tomorrow?
Sure. So, if you look at the jobs of tomorrow, you kind of see yourself setting out as a freelancer, right? So,
right.
You've got to own your own brand. Yeah. And that's something that hasn't been talked about, I don't think, in school at any level, at any point, is preparing to have your own brand and be able to speak to your strengths, your skill, that area of drive. So specifically, I mean, everything shifts towards entertainment, gamification. From my perspective, from a technology innovation perspective, that's where everything is shifting. So those skills to be able to design those platforms of tomorrow, those immersive experiences,
Yeah.
those are going to be the skills that our students in 4, 5, 6, 7 years are going to need to enter the
Mhm.
workforce when all those typical jobs are now automated.
Yeah. Last thing, define what you mean by typical jobs. I think we've done a great job of kind of getting into some prediction, which I think is important. But let's just clarify for us what you mean by typical jobs.
I would say maybe typical was the wrong word, maybe traditional would be
Okay.
easier,
Yeah.
right? So the traditional jobs of preparing to be an accountant, let's say.
Right.
I mean, that's when I was in high school, that's what I wanted to be, was an accountant, until I took accounting 1.
Yeah.
Then I realized, what was I thinking?
Right.
Yeah, my mentors and people I looked up to, they wanted those careers, but how does that fit where my passions are?
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe a word change there.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That segues interestingly into a conversation I had a couple weeks ago with a good friend of mine. He's a tradesman, and he actually came over to deal with one of our toilets. And he's sitting there with this big snake tool, and I'm telling him about the vision of We School. And he said to me words to the effect of, but in a future like that, nobody will want to do this. Right? Jackie, do you think that those kind of jobs that we might call manual labor, or I don't like the word menial, but for lack of a better word, menial kind of jobs, like, society looks down on people like the garbage collector, the I don't, whatever else. But I think the truth is that obviously they're important jobs, but more than that, a lot of people love what you might call good, honest, hard work. So do you think that there's a risk of somehow finding, vast sectors of the economy underserved as we move into the future?
I'm not sure there is that big a risk, because there some of those good, honest, traditional jobs might change in the way that they're done, but they always will need to be done.
Yeah.
So yes and no, because in reality, some people like getting dirty and mucky and feel better coming out of it at the end of the day, whereas others are deep thinkers. Like I'm a deep thinker, but I like a guy who's real dirty.
Sure.
Who looks like, like a mechanic who looks like he's done a lot in a day.
So I would advise and suggest to all of you watching to reach out to Jackie publicly and appropriately first. Now that you know what she likes.
What the future holds for us is better ways of doing things. Okay.
Yes.
More efficient ways of doing things.
Yes.
So, even though you'll find the plumber still finding a better way of doing things, you'll still need somebody to invent the better way of doing things.
Right.
And what you'll find is that people will move towards wanting to create more, because who didn't watch Einstein and the real inventors and wish that they were one of them? As a child, who didn't go out into the garden and think that they've invented a wheel because they've got a stone to turn over and over it? That kind of thing. So now moving on into the 21st century, who wouldn't like to just come up with something completely new that changes the world?
Right. I really like what you said about how it'll probably just be largely about finding better ways to do the things, rather than somehow eliminating the things, or having, plumbing robots, right?
Yes.
Where, I mean, I don't think that we're looking at a sort of Jetsons type future. I suppose at some point in the future, maybe, but I think that that's important for all of those people who kind of, wonder where framing a house will go, jobs like that, right? Like, or paint, like construction in general is a good one. Those people, even though I didn't love it when I did it, most of those people really love what they do.
Mm.
They love spending time working hard, building something.
Yes.
And I remember when I first started in construction, if you wanted to put sheetrock on the ceiling, you and one other guy had to get on ladders, and you had to time it so that you walked up the ladders at the same time. You had to hold it up. You had to have, it was really complicated. You had to have screws in your pocket, the same pocket that's holding a hammer, or the same hand that's holding a hammer, reaches in, grabs a screw, flips it around, pokes it in like this, and then takes the hammer and taps it in so that you can come back later and screw it in. Since then, putting drywall on a ceiling is fundamentally the same thing, but they use stilts now. They use tiny forklifts. They use pneumatic drill guns. So there's all these different ways that they've gotten the process better, but it's still people doing the work.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that that's important as we move into the future, to understand that it's probably not going to be hovering robots that pick up your trash, right?
I will tell you that they already have those.
They already have hovering trash robots?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. So, okay, John, fine. Where does the human fit into that equation?
Control, right? The physical environment, the empathy to, create some of these things, these are where our skills, right, as humans will be used when we're really partnering with our mechanical assistants, bots, tools, who knows what, right?
Yeah.
So we still have to be human, and we still have to learn how to control whatever tools or environment. Now they have those mini robots lifting the drywall, but those things go awry, they break down, they need to reprogram for a different type of drywall that came out that's now sustainable. Who knows? So there's always those. There will always be that need for us to continue to control and drive and enhance, technology. So, we don't become obsolete, but the more and more you look into the fourth transformation, and you look at augmented and virtual realities, and you look at robotics and the advancements in robotics that are currently out there, I do see a Jetson future. I mean, not in the funny colors and the weird voices and taser guns. I'm not a sci-fi guy. I'm more just a realist, understanding the speed and of enhancement of technology. And really, we've said it before, if you can imagine it, trash picking up drones, they can happen because there's already drones and there's already the technology. Now you just need to have the vision to say, okay, well, now we have this. Why can't I make this do this? That's where we will excel. That's where our students coming up, they have to take that approach. Well, there's all this tech out there. How do we use it for the good? How do we solve stories for people with disabilities? Or how do we help the next generation understand this technology, right? I mean, there's going to be so many challenges, but really it all starts with imagining it. Imagine that working better doing this.
Yeah.
It's a simple mindset switch.
Debbie, what about you? Just in the general sense, what do you think we should want for our kids moving forward?
Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The first thing that always I think is the most important is a strong sense of self-awareness and an understanding of strengths, what they bring to the table. I think being very clear on their soft skills, making sure, like John mentioned, we're humans. We always will be humans. And I see us moving. We look back at, the caveman age where it was strictly survival, or even when we first landed in this country and we had to toil our fields and build our homes. We have so much leisure time now in comparison. I think that's going to continue to improve and increase. So I think making good use of our leisure time and making sure that our children have a set of skills that will allow them, as John said, to adapt and use their skill set the best that they can. I think a lot of theoretical knowledge, and I've said this before too, there's so many pieces of information that we can easily get off of our phones, off of our computers. Right. We don't need to learn in the same in-depth way that we've had in the past. So that opens up a whole opportunity for the children of tomorrow and today to learn different things. And I think that's what I'm most excited about with our new school moving forward, is that we're going to start to show others how to do that. And it's really necessary. And I think it's time for people to wake up and realize that the future is now, and doing the way school has been done for so many years served that time is up. It's no longer serving our students. And so it really is time to make a big difference. And I'm excited to be on the cutting edge of that difference. So I think the skills, understanding what the skills are, making sure that they understand what they enjoy doing so that they bring their heart and soul, their imagination to it, and teach them how to think. Because up until this point, thinking has not been necessary to be a good student, right? You just regurgitate and move on. That's not going to happen anymore. It's not going to work. You've got to be able to think and problem solve.
So surreally true. It is just, I mean, I don't want this episode to be about my frustrations with, how thinking and learning in school are not really, there's not a correlation there. But so we're talking about the soft skills, and we're talking about now how we're going to have so much more leisure time. Is there a need then to try to deliberately instill? Let me ask it this way. What do we want to deliberately instill in future generations so that they don't just sort of spin their wheels with all of that leisure time? Is the question clear? I'm not sure the question's clear, but you get it. So what do you think? What do we need to put? I would want to almost call it like, how do we put a fire in their belly? You know what I mean? So that if we're having more and more and more leisure time, we're not just sort of, I don't know, sitting in the park, just watching the squirrels or whatever.
I think I would say to you, Manny, that what makes a person interesting is typically a wide set of interests, taking interest in others, being clear on what they like to do, finding their joy in that. Maybe they're in their flow, as you say, when you find something you do and you think an hour's passed only to find out it's been 5 hours. I mean, that's the kinds of things that we need to make sure we're exposing our children to and giving them the opportunities to really take advantage and to learn about themselves and what they love and what they like and how they can serve humanity with that skill set. That's a big piece of it. Because there's a lot of joy in serving others. And I think when you think past yourself, you really can make an impact. And that's what I'm hearing us talking about, is imagining and changing things so that all benefit. And I think if we can instill that in our children, then we'll be doing a really good job.
I particularly like the piece about how there's joy in serving others. And I think we all know that on some level. But what's interesting to me is we sort of have to learn that through a process of unlearning a bunch of the stuff that's sort of like you might think of as the social strata of our conditioning when we're younger. America is a very individualistic society. And yet everyone who you come across who seems content and who seems to have purpose understands the value of serving others. It's a really interesting dichotomy. So on the idea, where am I? on the idea of learning how to serve other people, John, do you have any thoughts on how we kind of start to instill that during the K through 12 years?
I think it's the encouragement to, I think it's when we have a set curriculum,
Yeah.
It doesn't allow somebody to step away and follow interests and those. I was the type of student back in the day that I was all over the place, right? I had many interests, and nobody knew how to handle that in a traditional education setting, right? So I think that if we understand that the approach has to change a little bit, and that's what interests you and what drives you, and then that might just be a portion of what you're dealing with. You might have 15 interests, and that busy culture that we live in will kind of go away because now we have free time, right?
Yeah.
Well, now everybody won't, when you approach somebody, the first thing they won't tell you is, let me check my calendar because I'm real busy.
Right.
Because everybody will know, well, no, you're really not. You've got bots, you've got all these people taking care of all this stuff. I know what you're doing. Right. And now I could physically see you. We're connected somehow. So don't try to tell me that you're busy.
Yeah.
So let's actually accomplish something. Let's not take a bunch of time, but let's get real focused on where our skills are, how our skills interact with other people and their skills, and then let's create something together.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a total shift of letting people be in different places with different things instead of saying, no, you got to be in this box right here.
Yeah. And you're talking about conceptually as well as physically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go back to this idea that we're all going to be sort of our personal brand. I think this is a really important notion. And I think that if we can really sort of get to the point where we can provide clarity on it to the listener, that would be very helpful. I predicted many, many years ago that America was moving toward being a nation of entrepreneurs and consultants. And I think that that's sort of what you're saying in a way. So let me check to see if I'm right here. The idea that each of us is going to be a personal brand and that we're going to be how did you put it? You didn't say freelance workers, but you said something that meant the same as freelance workers. Do you see corporate structures being like entities comprised of like almost like each person is a company, right? A personal brand, and then they come together under the umbrella of a bigger company. Do you see that sort of being the trend moving forward?
Well, I can tell you, I've experienced this firsthand for the last 24 years, being in a corporate in a corporate setting in a Fortune 50 tech company.
Yeah.
So I've been through the mountains and the valleys of, we want consultants, we want employees, we want consultants, we want employees.
Right.
It's been going on since before Y2K, right? So we're never going to get away from that because of the financial system, right? There's benefits at sometimes to having people. There's benefits at some point not to have anybody work for you.
Interesting.
And when you look at the global workforce and how things are changing right now, sometimes, there's a group of people on this little island who do this job really well, and they only charge this much money. So why do I want to have all these people working for me? So I think that when the skills shift changes and the environment changes, corporate environment's been changing along with it as they reduce workforce, as they offshore workforce or onshore at some time. So it's that same concept. Everybody's going to have skills to be able to go to these companies that, hey, I need this done, and I'm looking for somebody who has these skills. Well, here's my skills. Here's my portfolio. Here's references of people I've done this work. And you know what? If I have a skill that I need this developed, okay, and there's 6 people in the world that can do it, do I really care about the background of those 6 people? Does it really matter if they went to MIT or not? If it's not pertinent, it doesn't matter anymore. They can take care of a need that I have, and we can transact on it. And that's the future, I feel. You're going to have to represent yourself to be able to step into a corporate world or somebody's other personal brand, collaborate with them and help them see where you're valuable, where your skill set will fit. And as the skill sets, as the technology changes, you're never going to stop learning. I mean, that's another thing I learned from the corporate world. I mean, 20 years into my career, they're still teaching us, what's coming ahead. They still want us to have that outlook of where's your job going to be in 4 years?
Yeah.
So it's already happening, but the education shift didn't happen along with it.
Yeah.
The whole environment shifted around it, but the education didn't.
That, I think, may be the clearest we've come as a group to summing up the problem. I think that really nails it. The whole workaday world, the whole world of production and earning a living and contributing to the economy and society is completely unrecognizable from what it was when the sort of official school system, the public school system, was institutionalized. That bears some. For some reason, that just really came clear to me just now. You know what I mean? So, Jackie, where do you think that this idea of developing yourself as a personal brand fits into this landscape?
Well, it fits because people have to find who they are in order to be able to develop themselves. Okay, and we're not necessarily seeing that in the public school system.
Right.
They're being told that they're part of a family. That's a very popular way of selling involvement to a school. Join our family. But the family all looks exactly the same. It's it's unrepresentative.
Yeah.
Right. What is needed is a model like ours, in which come tell us who you are as part of the family. Okay. In that way, kids can get really proud of who they are and what they represent. Okay. And in doing that, they will nurture it and want to build on it more and learn more about what they can do in order to contribute to the family and beyond, which is that is what I see happening in the future, which is necessary for the future that John and Debbie have spoken about, where kids contribute, where they serve, where they learn to love to serve. At the moment, the problem that we have is, like I said, if you don't know who you are, I think it was in one of our meetings this week that we talked about that.
It looks like
sorry?
Your sound has gone funny there for a minute.
Any better?
Yeah.
Whereas kids are coming out at 16 saying, I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what I enjoy. I don't know what I can do.
Yeah.
All of that cannot lead to that point,
Right.
to that utopia where they actually enjoy a life in which they're doing what they're best at and changing careers as they will to match their likes and dislikes.
Interesting. So do you think then that under the right circumstances, a kid can reach 16 or so and really have a sense of maybe not exactly what they want to do for the rest of their life, but what their passions and strengths and what they want to pursue really are?
Absolutely. If we connect them early enough and actually spend the time saying, you're really good at this.
Yeah.
And you can show me, even though you can't tell me what you enjoy about it. You show me and explain things to me and develop things for me. You know, show
Yeah.
show me your skill.
Yeah.
By the time they're 16, they could have been. Think of the average athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they're developing certain skills and the game they play and their discipline over the years.
Yeah.
By the time they reach, you know, into their teens, they are so proud, and there's nothing else on earth like playing a good game. You know, even for a boxer, which I've never ever understood why anyone would want to do that in sport. But it's the same discipline. It's the same concept. I really don't understand why the education system thought that it wasn't the right thing to do, to put the love of learning into the kids at an early age and develop them in their being to want to be what they want to be. People still say to me, you're an academic. Is your child an academic? They're not an academic. They don't like it. You know, my daughter's creative. She doesn't have to be me. She has to be her.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all I ask of her. You know, when you say what we want for our children, I want them to be authentically themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that when I'm no longer standing next to them, which is the point at which they're earning a wage to keep me in the manner to which I've become accustomed, when that point comes,
Yeah.
I want to know they're out there authentically themselves.
Okay. I like it all. When we sum it up by saying that what we want for our kids is for them to be authentically themselves, part of me says, yes, that's right. And part of me worries that it's a little too vague. But I want to do something sort of risky right here on air with the three of you. Would any of you feel comfortable here now telling the world what the idea and the essence of our school is? Would any of you be willing to jump in and take a swing at that one?
I was pointing at Debbie.
I was pointing at you. So I think you start.
I think that's the one thing. Let me just say, I think that's the one thing we haven't done outright in any of these volumes, is just come right out and say what it is we're doing.
So let's look at what's currently happening in school. It's very competitive nature. You have to be the best of your class. You've got to be the top 10. You don't help other students out. You stick to your own game. And then we get them into corporate or real life where you must be cooperative and you must know how to collaborate, yet they're not taught any of those skills. So schools got it kind of backwards. So the school that we're developing will teach those 6 pillars of success. We will incorporate time for reflection, time for visualization, time to get really clear, time to ask those what if questions, and give them skills that they need. It's time to, like we've been doing for the last 5 months, is sifting through what in current high school curriculum is really relevant to the world outside of school, right? School is currently so unlike anything else, right? None of us have ever worked with people all of our same age. I never have been in a situation where everybody is my age. Yet what do we do in school? We put them all with the same group. There's so many morons in what we're allowing to happen in the school that doesn't really serve us. So I'm going to hand it off to you, John, to sort of go from there with the next sort of vision part.
Sure. So, that, creativity, imagination, all those things in play, we landed on a core curriculum that would be research, collaborate, and innovate, which then drove to a name of RCI. And really, it's defining a process of how we can take students on a journey, right? And that journey being a project, let's say, or a deliverable, whatever, whatever you imagine it can be, it is. And then allow them to understand, well, which parts of that puzzle am I good at? Or which parts of the puzzle am I interested in? Mm-hmm. And then send them off and figure out, are you really interested in this? How deep are you taking, that understanding of the subject matter? And then are you able to then, once you understand it, are you able to sit amongst your peers and share what you've learned. And in that sharing brings up so many educational opportunities, both for, not only for the person sharing, but for all the listeners too as well, because now they're getting a taste of that subject matter. They're understanding the interconnections of how it fits with their areas of interest. And then they go away after they collaborate, and then they get to innovate. And then they get to say, okay, well, maybe we're innovating this, platform that's, a game that we're all interested in. It's an online game that we're going to create. And you have kids that are interested in the arts part and, the soundtrack of it and the visualization. And then you have the kids who are interested in actually developing it and programming it. And you have the kids who are interested in, maybe doing the technical writing of it and explaining it to people of how it works. Then all of a sudden you built this little team, right? Well, that fits better into what Debbie was explaining to us of an education system of now they might be the same age, they might not, but they are a team. And as a team, if they're focused on something together, they have that one goal together, well, then they get to create. And they might create it. It might not work. It might be something that's the opposite of what they intended to create. Who knows? But in reality, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Because at the same time, they've learned how many skills. They've developed what new areas of interest. And then they're able to build upon that by just the project itself. The need to, and let's not forget that eventually you need to be evaluated, right?
Yeah.
Well, they evaluate themselves on their progress together. And then they come to show everybody at the end of a time when they hit a milestone or anything, then we create a moment for them. Because that's something that we have never talked to about here, I don't think, since I've been involved, is the lack of moments in society, right? We're all busy. We don't have time to stop and smell the roses or to understand those moments. With the focus of them having a project, working together, and then creating something, at the end of it, this wonderful thing happens. It's a moment. It's something that clicks in here. It's something that they put away. It's, man, I remember when we worked together on this little piece of a project. And then 3 years later, that moment still speaks to them because they actually did something. It wasn't a graded test. It wasn't standing in front of the classroom and regurgitating something real. It was something active. It was something immersive with their peers. And then they get to show off what they did. What a better moment than that?
I love it. Yeah. Jackie, let's get your take on what this school is that we're creating. What the heck are we doing?
I think, along with the bits that Debbie covered and John covered, what makes it attractive to me is that we are actually making that connection and building that excitement between the kids, the future and what it holds. We're making it very clear to them through the use of AR, XR and VR technology, through the use of learning the 6 pillars, exactly what life can be and what it can serve up for them, which should solve a lot of the problems that you see in the modern day classroom, which is kids believing that education is being done to them. Okay. What we are creating is somewhere that they want to be, that they want to be part of, that it's that family, that interactive family, that family that, you know, has a future attached to it that they'll want to be part of. The use of our avatars that we will build for them in the beginning is pivotal to me, because imagine being able to, as John said, we're busy, we don't notice what we've done well, but they'll be able to go online and have a look and say, oh, I was really good at that, you know, and then be able to start getting a connection to what exactly they want to do with the rest of their life, instead of hearing, and yes, I put my hands up, I have been guilty of saying, you do your top button up because it builds you ready for the workforce where you have to do up your top button. I have said that, right? but instead they will actually be able to connect to the workforce and say, I want to go into that company. This is the role I want to take, because I've gone through the roles in my years at RCI, and I've been a trainee, I've been a team leader, I've been a manager. I'm now capable of going out there and making a difference.
I love it. So with your guys' help sort of laying the foundation, I'm going to take a swing at it too. And I think that what we're doing here in a very real way is what they tried to do 150 years ago. They looked at what was needed and they created an educational system around that. The thing that is different about what we're doing is adaptability is built into our DNA. But that having been said, the RCI Prep Academy, We School Doing Business as RCI, we'll explain that in future episodes, because I know that there are a lot of people that track each one of these and they're going, wait a minute, you're not We School now? We'll get to that. But what we're doing is we're looking at the lay of the land now and looking out into the future and saying, this is what the academic model should look like to prepare today's kids for the world of tomorrow. And that looks like mimicking and improvising and improving on the way that the actual work world looks. Current education reflects the way the work world looked 150 years ago, leading up to maybe 70 years ago or something like that, right? And so that's what we're doing in a nutshell. All of these pieces that Debbie, you mentioned, John, you mentioned, and Jackie, you mentioned, are part of that. But for those of you watching at home, and that's a way that the world has changed too. Most of you aren't watching at home. You guys, the takeaway is that because we're private and we're not beholden to state and federal or even international hoops that we have to jump through, we can take a cold, calculating, shrewd look at exactly what kids need with the help of not one, but two really, frankly, revolutionary educators. And we can say, let's make a school that fits this reality, not the reality of, last century. That to me is what we're doing in as close to a soundbite as I can get it.
It was a good one. It was a good soundbite. It was very good.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that what really took us down this transformation too, as well, was understanding what school is and what school may be, and maybe we're not even a school anymore.
Right.
The commitment that we have to our partners, our students, our parents, is that we will be a part of their journey beyond 4 years. Mm-hmm. Continuing education, building additional skill sets, keeping them, helping them with future employment through internships throughout their process, working with mentors in the fields of their interest areas as part of their education plan. Those are major shifts for tomorrow, right? Yeah. These are ways of thinking that we're going to give them all the resources to kind of go as far into a subject matter as they want, deal with actual industry people, and hear it from the horse's mouth sometimes. Maybe this really, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you want to do this. What if you looked into these areas? Oh, thank you. Thank you for pointing me that. And then going down those areas. So it's like a large rabbit hole. Yes. I want to send all, I just want to watch them go into the rabbit hole and watch them come out on the other end.
Yeah.
Just show the world what they can do.
I love it. Thank you guys once again. Jackie, Debbie, John, thank you for joining me in volume 10 of the Future of Education Roundtable. That's so cool. To each of you who has joined in or who sees this on a replay, thank you very much for following our journey. We are over the moon excited as we get ready to actually open the school this fall. So depending on when you're seeing this, either in the past, the present, or the future, if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to myself, to John, to Jackie, or to Debbie to learn more about how you can be involved, how maybe your kids can be students. Thanks very much.